Don't believe, just know. Cymatic TV, turning vibration into reality. Hello and welcome back to Cymatic TV with yours truly, Tom Lawless, and of course, as forever, my pilot, Tanya Lawton. How you doing, Tanya? Okay?
Doing very well on this gnarly and windy day in the UK.
It is your birthday as well, isn't it?
It might be my birthday today, and I was praying for some sunshine. I was hoping you were going to put in a good word for me, but it's very windy and rainy and cloudy, so I guess...
As you're an air sign, I thought you would like the wind, see, that's what it was.
Well, we've got plenty of that. Thank you so much.
So you've just come out of your autumn period. I
have indeed, yes, and it's been a fairly challenging one, as normally predicted. Now I understand about it, I'm a little bit more observant about it, and
right.
I'm glad now. First day of my winter, stepping into
which is good.
For New Year, so I'm excited about the new year and what it's going to bring.
And I've just slipped into my autumn.
Oh dear.
Over the last couple of days, well, I'm going to be like that. No, I'm not going to be like that. But I certainly felt it this year. I felt it last year, which is what you just went through.
Yeah.
And this year, I'm, because you've just started 2020 in theory.
I know,
in Earth years.
I'm way behind.
Yeah.
And who would want to go 2020 again? Let's face it.
Yeah. Who would? You know what I mean? So, and I've just gone into 2021. Well, I'm going into the autumn of 2020. So, and it does feel heavier than last year. So,
not forgetting we have got this little coronal hole activity, which is just probably exacerbating the situation a little bit. But we're going to talk about that shortly, are we not?
Exactly. So,
back to business.
Welcome to Energy Update, which we should be doing every Friday, having a look at what's coming down the energy vibration lines from the sun, from the universe, right through to the earth, and through to us, the humans. So we're just going to go through point by point. If you really want to know a little bit about the back information on this, click below. There will be a link to our sun video of how we look at earth energies and human energies and stuff like that. Click below there. That'll give you a lot of this back information that we're talking about during this show today. So we've got a little slideshow set up for you.
Okay.
If we can just sort of bring that up.
It's coming. There we go.
There you go. So if we go to the first slide. So this is basically, so here we have the update on we are on the 25th of September. This is a map of the main arteries of lines of energies and the vortexes that these energies create across the entire globe. What I've done is I've put on there, covered the points where the chakras are in my accordance. So we've got the root chakra down in the bottom left, which is at 0.7. And then you've got the sacrum, which is above that, straight on along that red line, which is up in Mount Shasta. And then you have the plexus solis, which is down in Australia. And this is where we start getting a bit on the blue line. And then we got the heart chakra right up into the UK at the top there, center of the image. And then you have the throat and third eye, which is over by Japan and Mount Fuji. And then finally you have the crown chakra, which is on Mount Kailash in Nepal or Tibet or whatever the Chinese are splitting up into these days. In that point there, you will notice that the root chakra and the crown chakra are actually crossing points of the same lines, of the blue and the red lines. And they are two of the major lines. They are the original dragon lines if you're looking into Chinese energies and ki energy and chi energy and that sort of thing. So we're just going to go through, this will be coming back up and we'll be looking through how the sun's been affecting this. So in the bottom left-hand corner here, what we've seen this week, which has been exciting, is this new sunspot coming through for the cycle 25. Now, you've been watching with me for the last 2 years. you haven't really seen a sunspot kick off
Not really, no. I've been waiting and
in the
waiting.
direction of the Earth.
Yes, we've had a number of little teasers and things with some hope, but each time they've just come round and they've either fired off somewhere else or they've just fizzled out into nothing. And I get very frustrated, you know, waiting for this big phenomena that you've promised me. But yeah, we've moved into the new solar cycle 25, but it's been very, very thin on the ground. Not many sunspots at all. This is probably the largest one that I've seen coming through, sort of at
It is a nice size.
This latitude. But obviously you can see the coronal hole sat there right in front, which you're going to explain what effect that's going to have on that sunspot.
Well, I did in a Facebook page, on my Facebook page and on Cymatic TV, to sort of square up for this video, that the coronal hole that's just sitting before, it's a little bit like a yin-yang situation. And that coronal hole is sucking that energy out of that sunspot. So as it does turn around in the direction of the sun, I don't think we will be seeing much in the way of flaring coming in our direction. I think that coronal hole, if anything, is going to get powered up much more. To the right of that video that's playing on the left-hand corner, bottom left-hand corner, we have an image from the coronal holes which were earlier on last weekend on the 19th of September. And you can see just on the top left-hand limb around about 10 o'clock, that little sunspot still behind around the other side of the sun for the time being. And these coronal holes that we can see running through from the northern pole right through to the equator, they were affecting the Earth in through earthquakes and etc. So if we can just move on to the next slide of that, we can see the magnetic field of the Earth is very calm. You know, when you only see the little bars down just before September 18th and just after the September 18th, if that lasts for sort of a whole day, that's when we start getting problems with cosmic rays coming in, and that increases skin problems, cancer problems and stuff like that. So luckily we haven't had that totally, but it's not really been that much off the floor. But this is just as the coronal hole was just turning to face us. So the wind does take 2 or 3 days to actually get to us. And what it was having the effect on the Earth, because that's the vibration that comes through straight away rather than the actual wind, which we see on the next slide, is the earthquakes. Now, we did have some big ones. They were mainly in the southern hemisphere. We can see around South America, in the Atlantic. We're going to talk about that mid-Atlantic, that southern Atlantic anomaly a little bit later on, but also just off the top of Australia into Bali and etc. And then you had one that was right down by the South Pole, which was tipping on the bottom of the South America there. So the main big ones were really in the Southern Hemisphere. And this is where they transfer the energies from the 22nd of September. This was just afterwards. The energy gets transferred from the Northern Hemisphere to the Southern Hemisphere. And we can see this within the earthquakes itself. There was a lot of little ones around about California sitting, and in Alaska, just sitting above and below the sacrum. And we did have a little bit of creeping as it came across through the crown chakra, through that blue line of which we can see on that crown, on the chakra map on the top left-hand side, as it creeps through, and it will start affecting the heart chakra a little bit, which is just by the UK. So this was all back on the 19th of September. This was last Saturday. So if we go to the next next video, what was happening at this time as well, and this is another reason the vibrations of the sun affects us. You can see that yellow cloud coming off of Africa and it heading out into the Atlantic, and that's dust particles from the Sahara Desert, and that takes charged heavy particles into the air, which are very hot, and therefore they create those temperature anomalies, which then feed hurricanes. If there were sunspots going on, you would be getting big hurricanes going off. But the sunspots are actually out of sync with what is going on Earth. Therefore, I think this hurricane season will be very low. I think it's been pretty low already, but there hasn't been that many. You know, there's been a couple, but it certainly hasn't been the worst in record, that's for sure. And you can just see in this next slide where where we've had, 5 tropical storms in the Atlantic at one given point. And, you know, they haven't really been able to come to fruition simply because the sun has not been giving us this sort of vibration of that sunspot, which you can normally see turning around on the left-hand side in that video. And as we're not getting that, we're not also, as humans, we're not getting that good electrical vibe. We're getting, it's a much more heavier vibe, much more sorting out, sifting through the basic stuff, the real rudimentary things of life. If you click onto the next slide, there we can see this is the remnants of that. You can see the hurricane that went off to the right, and then I think this was Sally that was building in, coming in to America. It did a bit of damage, as it would have done because it was a category 2, but nowhere near anything that we've seen in the past. And it's just as well we didn't have any sunspots, because otherwise it would have been a lot more sort of destructive. But this is all part of the rhythms that we can feel within the humans. And if you get a very heavy, very strong hurricane season, it's going to blow a lot of air and make it a lot of air between the root chakra and the sacrum, which will make a lot of kind of me sort of scenario. And if you look at 2020, it's not necessarily been about me. It's been, you know, a lot of the things have been, you know, wear your mask. What for? Who knows? You know, it's a little bit like Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. But, you know, when you wear your mask, you know, I'm wearing it to save other people. So it's actually building together the community rather than actually splitting it off. So that's sort of the vibration that's been coming through over the past year, really. That's the underlying current. As we go further on in the week, now we're going to come through where we get this coronal hole, the effects of that coronal hole that we showed you earlier on, actually physically infecting the magnetic field of the Earth. And we can see here by the 23rd, as I said, it took sort of 2 or 3 days from the 19th to start filtering through. It took a little bit longer. So by the 24th, we started getting a bit of like magnetic storms going on. And that was also could be seen when it starts hitting the red on that KP index, which you can find on SolarHam and stuff like that. This is what it did to the earthquakes. If we can just click onto the next.
And I would say that it's sort of the effect on the humans, the effect of that coronal hole on the 24th, because I certainly felt, you know, it was a different kind of vibe when this comes through, when you have this energy hitting the Earth and hitting us. It does have an impact, you know, and it was quite noticeable for me. You know, just emotionally, you kind of caught a little bit unguarded by it. You might just put it down to a rough day or whatever, but there was clearly something coming through that I couldn't really account for in my day, but I was definitely feeling it.
I was definitely feeling it as well. You know, it's a day, you know, a bit of a difficult situation for me because I just moved in. It was my first day into my autumn season, 23rd of September. But at the same time, you know, it's going to affect a lot of people. Maybe it won't affect everybody, but it gives the overall effect upon the population of the Earth, as it were. So I would have thought there would be a lot of people over the 23rd and 24th that they had particular types of emotions coming to the surface. If we click onto the next graph, we'll see what sort of emotions you've been talking about. So here we have again the earthquakes. This is taken on my telephone, so I do apologize. But we can see that there is still a lot of large earthquakes down in that mid-Atlantic section. around there. You also have it over the top of Australia and around Australia, going down into New Zealand. But the new factor is that energy that's creeping across the crown chakra and going up into the heart chakra. And that was really hitting Greece with quite a few quite large earthquakes. And this was the same time. This was on the 24th. So, and you had that little one which was up by the North Pole. So it switched from what we saw earlier from the South Pole to the North Pole. And this is the last knockings of the North energies just coming through. And the emotions that people might have felt on the 23rd and 24th, which was now 2 days ago, was, you know, just the heart getting a little bit muddled and a little bit of rumbling going on and a little bit of doubt and a little bit of work to be done with, you know, with your relationships and with your passions and stuff like that. And you may have felt that just sort of creeping through you over those sort of 2 days. If the earthquakes and the energy was redirecting and elsewhere rather than the heart chakra, because that's the main thing that really came up in the change, you know, you'd get different types of emotions that were rumbling and sifting through the basic stuff at different bases. And that could be, say, like on the crown, on the sacrum. So that could all to do with your pleasures and all to do with your work and everything like that. But this time it was your heart chakra. So, you know, people may have found that relationships were a little bit difficult, a little bit hard, a little bit of work, may have created a bit of confusion for ourselves, you know, wondering about things, you know, and I think, you know, I felt it. You know, I think you felt it as well, Tanya. I did have a couple of messages of other people saying they felt it as well.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely noticeably.
Yeah, exactly. So that was on the 23rd and the 24th. And this was the sunspot that was coming through, pushing that coronal hole. This is literally on the 24th, so this was yesterday, of that coronal hole that we can see on the left-hand side coming through. But the important thing to notice is where you have the green and the blue and the orange and the yellow, they're not mixing. So you're not getting any green and blue in the orange and yellow cell, and you're not getting any real yellows or oranges coming out in the green cell next to it. So therefore you get the two poles of the magnetic field of that particular part of the sun completely separate. So they're not going to fuse and create sunspots. And that's all to do with that coronal hole. And I'd just like to say, on that video on the bottom left-hand side, you can see the size of the Earth. And, you know, compared with the coronal hole, that coronal hole is probably around about 100 times the size of the Earth. It's massive. It's, you know, we should put things into context. And that sunspot's got to be at least, what, 20 times the size of the Earth? The amount of power that is and this is not a massive sunspot, but it is the first of the cycle 25, which lasts for 10 years. So we're going to gradually, it's going to be gradually get kicking up more and more and more and more. So I don't think we're going to get any flaring, which is a shame because we do need it. The less flaring we get, the magnetic field goes down, and you know, the more dangerous a flare can become. You know, because if the magnetic field of the Earth is very low, which it is, you know, it can get affected by these sort of these solar flares. So we've got this little peak coming up, and that was just the ending of that coronal hole that we can see zipping out to the right of at the beginning of that video. And we should get the first earthquakes coming in this afternoon. So this is the 25th. We're recording this at 3 o'clock in the afternoon French time. That's about 2 o'clock GMT, which is, I think, 1 o'clock universal time. But we should be getting earthquakes, I personally think, either in Indonesia or in Italy. So we'll be looking at 6 and above, coming up from early evening on the 25th. Going, that warning I would put right up, going right through to Sunday morning at least. and then we'll get the wind from the corona hole that will turn up on the Monday, and then that will do the second wave of earthquakes, and that will show us how the energy is changing from one chakra to another. Now, if it actually comes over in Indonesia, that means that it's going to be much more sort of vocal. It's going to be much more towards the plexus solis. So it's going to be people talking about putting plans into place. If it does kick off in Italy, that means there's going to be a lot more soul searching in the heart and in love and relationships and stuff like that. There is another possibility where we could have earthquake builds up with a lot smaller ones building up around the Alaskan Ridge, which is just by the sacrum, exactly, just at the top left there. So it's between the sacrum and the third eye, and the third eye and the throat chakra. And the sacrum and the third eye do work, and the throat chakra, they do work in tandem as much as the plexus solis and the heart chakra work in tandem. So it could be a case that if it does get there, what will happen is, I think, will be a lot of building up. If it does get into Indonesia and then the Alaskan Ridge, I think we're going to get a stage where people are going to realize our raison d'etre of being here. So, and it's going to force people to stand up and kind of go, do you know what? We don't want the world to be driven like this. And I think it could be a bit of in mid-October, it looks like there's going to be a section where, governing bodies across the world will have to sit up and take notice, I think. And there's a definite inner movement going on, But this is all to do with this pole shift as well, this South Atlantic anomaly as well. So the thing you should be looking out for this over this next coming week is, first of all, to see where the earthquakes kick off again over the weekend. If it starts moving up in towards Italy, then therefore you're going to be having to deal with heart and relationship situations. If it does kick off in Indonesia, this is where it's going to be asking people to stand up within your community and sort of say what you feel, how you feel, and, try and give society and the collective consciousness a guiding hand of how we go forward. And I think that could be backed up by the Alaskan Ridge sort of situation. We go on to the next slide. We go on to the next slide. There you go. Lovely. Thank you. Okay, so we're just going to talk a little bit about this South Atlantic anomaly. So the South Atlantic anomaly happens in South America, between South America and South Africa. So we're looking at points 17, 12, and 7. So 7 is that root chakra that we talked about earlier on. We can't quite see it, but up in the top right-hand corner, you've got the crown chakra of where that hooks in. Now, the South Atlantic anomaly is where the magnetic field of the Earth, you have the northern vibration, which is expressing itself in the southern hemisphere, and it's a cell that's been there for a long time, and it's actually starting to split into two. So what we can see between 7 and 12 is that section there is being pulled apart, and here we can see this blue section here, the bigger section being pulled over towards the root chakra, and it's been splitting it into two, which is also being pulled over to South America, which I think used to be, and we're talking thousands of years ago, it used to be the plexus solis of the world. As you can see here, you've got the 7 and the 12. What it does is that vortex is actually ripping it apart. So that's what it's doing there. And the root chakra is getting so powerful that it's actually pulling that cell apart. And between 12 and 17, that's where it's compressing, and everything is being pulled into that point 17. So that's making the two split. which we can see in much more detail here. So where you get the two little islets of this figure 8, or the infinity sign, if you like, between those two islets, that's exactly where you're going to get the position 12, the crossing point number 12, or which we saw earlier on. Here's a bigger view of it. Here's a bigger view of it here, and we can see it. This is what's been spreading across, and it's that blue cell that's splitting. This one other interesting point which is going on here, if you look up in the top right-hand section, you have this red zone, and you do have in the south part as well, from just under south of Australia on the bottom right-hand side. And those two things there are pulling together through Indonesia, where we said the earthquakes were going to be hitting off. Now, the root chakra and the crown chakra is the same chakra. They work, they are the same thing. It's like the front and the back of one chakra. So if you get the root chakra that starts kicking off, you will get the crown chakra that will also kick off. It's either you pull all the energy from the root from the crown chakra and you put it into your root. But what we're seeing here at the moment is both root and crown charging up, which will reduce all the other chakras. But what it will give us is our raison d'etre, the reason we are here. And I think that's that whole thing that's going to be happening in October, which we should be keeping an eye on over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Because I reckon that's going to bring to the forefront in the general people the whole idea of why are we here?
So potentially that's when the proverbial might hit the fan.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But the thing is, but the thing is, whose shit is hitting whose fan?
Okay.
That's the question. See, I think the fan, you could look at the governing bodies across the globe, and the feces, yes, it's a nice way of saying shit, I guess. The feces that is hitting this fan is the general public who is waking up. It may, people may be saying, oh, it's going to be loads of disorder and everything like that. It does not have to be like that.
There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear around the world generally, from what I'm hearing. People anticipating some kind of chaos, and people are stockpiling, and there's real fear building in.
Well, people don't fully understand what's going on with the vibration, and they can't see the natural process of it. Yeah, fear is created by unknown. But once you know and you can see these vibrations very clearly, there's no fear, because you know what's going on and you can know what to be expected. So if you're going to understand that people are going to stand up and be counted, this could be a great thing. You know, but if you don't know what's going on and you're just sort of feeling a little bit in your bones and sort of saying, oh, fear, fear, be very fearful of these dates and stuff like that, which a lot of people prophesize on YouTube and stuff like that.
This is invaluable information to give yourself a heads up to understand this information. Anybody can access this information and notice and observe these things. Then one might not be so frightened, because you've got real information. So it takes that element of uncertainty away. Or you watch each week in the energy updates to get a full interpretation.
Totally. So basically, so for those people who are, for example, let's say Cancerians, if the heart chakra kicks off, because you're into your full summer, it might be a factor that you actually, life is brilliant, that you discover a new love. But for the majority of people, for 3/4 of the people that are born, their vibration slightly out of that summer period, the majority of people may find that it's actually sort of tugging on your heartstrings a little bit and making you reassess your relationships. So that, I would have thought that's the overriding view on it. But, you know, as I said, if it kicks off in Indonesia, it's going to make people stand up and be counted. And that's going to be across the board. You know, it's not just going to be one sign that's going to be affected more than others. But, you know, so, you know, keep an eye on what's going on with the with the earthquakes. Keep an eye on what's going on with the, if you can just see on this photograph, so this is an old view of the magnetic field. I think this is about 15, 20 years old, this view. And you can see below South Australia, you can see that bubble that hasn't actually been formed yet. You can see where that bubble was in China that's being pulled gradually down through to India. And this is actually increasing those North and South Pole excursions. If they meet, then we may end up with a magnetic pole shift, which we're well overdue anyway. And it's nothing to be worried about.
Can you explain what impacts it have? Because a lot of people, again, it's another unknown, because we don't know the timing, we don't know the impacts, no one was around.
Well, if you look at it on a human aspect, it will inverse our energy flow, direction of our energy flow. Now that can all be it coincides a little bit with the fluid gendum sort of GTB, whatever it is. LGTB, sorry, I do apologize about that. I was never very good at acronyms. But anyway, you know, you can see that sort of thing. You can see a lot of things being turned on its head, you know, in the social aspect of the humans. As what's going to happen to the Earth, basically we'll get more extreme weather for the time being during the change. But once the change is in place, you'll get the Northern Europe, which will become slightly tropical, but then that will also mean sort of hurricanes and things like that. But you might find you'll get a very nice warm summer, a pretty cold winter, depending on what happens with the ice sheets and stuff like that. You know, the ice sheets, I think, will grow incredibly, which will lock up a lot of the fresh water. But in the meantime, before that actually happens, you're going to get a lot of fresh water dumped into the sea, reducing the salination of the sea, which you need salt water to have this electrical current that goes through the earth. If you reduce that salination in the sea, then therefore the electric current of the earth is going to reduce even further, which is going to encourage the pole shift. But once it switches into place, that will all build back up again very quickly. But it may mean that we might be into a sort of ice age sort of situation in, say, like the next 50, 100 years. Okay. You know, so you and I may not see this.
Yeah, but
it's a heads up for the kids.
Yeah, heads up for the future. Well, that's great. We've obviously in this session today we've spent more time because we've covered a lot of basis on foundational information of the lines and the vortexes and the chakras. But this energy update we'll be doing, endeavouring to do each week, sort of shorter bursts of information or updates on what's going on the sun, how it's affecting us, you know, and keeping an eye on solar cycle 25 and all the impacts and more so on how it does affect us on a daily basis, you know, time with the sun. So people are going to get more awareness of what's coming down the line.
Yeah, once people get up to speed of what we're talking about, so once we start talking about corona holes and sunspots, we don't have to explain the background details of it. So that it will be going, the news, the updates, the energy updates will be getting a lot shorter. But, you know, the information is, in a way, you should be understanding what the information is, what we're talking about. So it's always good to go back and look through our videos on Cymatic TV. Look at the videos that we do on there, that we've got some coming up about the chakras and etc. That will help you to understand when we get into the news, and it will give you a really sharpened knife of how things go.
And not forgetting that a lot of this information actually comes through in our book that we've just published in the event about the sun, corona holes, sunspots, and a potential outcome from one scenario. But it does go into this detail. So this is a lot of your work, which is not fictional, has gone into that book as well, which gives it a different feel.
And we are working on the next one, which is the Waves of Reality, which has already been enjoyable to work back on. Yep. 99% of it's done. We're just, you know, doing the last section. So the next section.
So what happens next?
Yes, exactly. So,
brilliant. Thank you very much, Tom, once again for this invaluable information, which can help every person in every day of their life, because this is something we can all access and give ourselves personal empowerment to know what's coming down the line, and to recognize why we feel the way we do. So those emotional ups and downs, or indescribable or unexplainable reactions to things, actually might not be so unexplainable. It could be just down.
So I hope it actually empowers people and everything like that. That's the main thing.
Okay, so thank you very much. If you've liked this this video, please press the thumbs up and share it with other people to pass this information around. Subscribe if you want to carry on seeing videos like this, and especially the energy updates, so you'll get notifications if you hit the bell. So each week this will come up, you'll be the first to access it. And we'll look forward to having some question and answer sessions as well, which we're going to build in. So if you've got any questions on this sort of information, please comment below. And we want to engage more people to understand. We want more people to understand this, so that the fear can go and we can live our lives with more information.
Yeah.
Want to add?
That's everything, I think.
Okay. Thanks.
Happy birthday, and
thank you.
Enjoy your winter months to come, you lucky thing.
I know. Look forward to winter. Isn't that hibernation now? Okay. Till next time. See you all soon. Ciao for now.
Ciao for now.
Don't believe, just know. Cymatic TV, turning vibration into reality.